Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Mr. Anonymous, and here's what he has to say. Greetings, Sandman. Hope you and all the MGTOWs are doing great. I listened to your video, Black Women and White Men, suggested by the user Anonymous Skunk, and you spoke about swirling, which is coaxed within the term interracial dating, but with an agenda. Swirling is a term used mostly by educated black women who open up their legs to random thugs, initially because they figure that their golden vaginas can change those men into husbands and fathers. When these thugs eventually get their nuts busted and move on to another woman, these educated women realize that their vaginas are not as golden as they first thought. All of a sudden, she gets sick and tired of those so-called thugs, and now she wants a white knight in shining armor to rescue her, where she can actually get married and have a happily ever after. She also gets social status points for having a white man as a husband as well as a biracial baby, while giving attitude to black men and saying that they ain't shit. The term black men ain't shit was developed by black feminists in the early 70s to corrupt black women and undermine the black man. A YouTuber known as David Carroll, who I recommend to black MGTOWs as well as black men as a whole, put it like this. Most black women in America today would prefer to be a white man's side chick than a black man's wife. I just gave the reason why the television series Scandal is watched so much by black women. You will observe this hypergamy in action a lot in corporate America, where educated black women will throw themselves at white men and even Arab men. Most men will have sex with them, but that's just about it, because they know that most of these black women were on the cock carousel thug style in the past. There's another agenda here at work. A lot of these black females are observing how white women, the most privileged class for centuries, are treating their white men like crap. Seeing this and becoming opportunistic, a lot of black women are sliding in and taking the white woman's position by becoming feminine and submissive, while the white woman herself is busy pushing gynocentrism and demonizing men as a whole. White women haven't caught on to this yet, but they eventually will. I foresee a backlash when men actually get caught in the middle of this. Be warned. You also made the point, Sandman, where black men can usually hold their own against black women. While this may be true, this norm is fading rather fast. Old school men are not afraid to check their black women, but because of black feminism and the introduction of the welfare state, black families started to decline, resulting in the single mom state. Boys who grew up without a father are now subject to the female mindset. When these boys reach adulthood, they think, behave, and troubleshoot like women, resulting in a crisis in the black community. Today we have many effeminate black men who are afraid to check black women, and even defend them when they obviously do things wrong. These new age effeminate black men or simps want to be in the good graces of black women so they would actually have a chance at accessing the golden vagina. But the joke's on them, because these same women would string them along while they have sex with a street thug. Allow me to give you the gist of the process. When she gets pregnant, the thug would no longer take care of the kid. By not taking responsibility, the single mom will then try to turn the negative into a positive. She will declare herself a strong independent black woman or single mom while posting Tony Gaskin's quotes on Facebook on how men should treat a woman, and listening to TD Jakes on TV so they can actually feel blessed and highly favored. If Mr. Simp / Captain Sabaho is still around, he will basically man up and take care of her kids. All of this is probably starting to sound familiar. If she's diabolical, she'll go after the thug for child support, get impregnated by Mr. Simp, and lock him down for child support as well. But then when she gets fed up with her bad decisions along the process, she then wants to swirl. I say run for the hills. If a black man decides to swirl, he is demonized for it by black females. But if a black female does it, you go girl. Slap those fingers. If you divide women in terms of race, Asian, Caucasian, Middle Eastern, Latinas, etc., you would see a very similar dysfunctional template, but expressed in different ways according to their race and culture. That's something that you should look into. And have a great day. Cheers. Well, Mr. Anonymous, thanks for bringing up many things that I haven't thought about before. First of all, the many stereotypes that you brought up are changing quickly. There may be a lot of truth to this statistic of black men no longer standing up to black women. We are now observing the black population in America having children at below replacement levels for the first time. Gone are the days when black women on average were having 3 or 4 babies with different men and trying to lock one down while at the same time using the kids as a welfare check. I'm sure it still happens, but nowhere near the same levels as it did before. And Mr. Anonymous, you also mentioned something rather interesting, the rise of the effeminate black male. If a generation of black men were kicked out by black women and replaced by government cheese and welfare checks, then their sons would grow up with less father figures. After 2 consecutive generations of broken homes, most young black boys probably have zero access to male mentors and father figures, so it makes sense that they would become more feminine than ever. So the rise of black women swirling with white men might also be black women looking for more masculine men in the white communities. Is that really a possibility? And I want everyone to let me know in the comments section below. Also, thanks to the many people that explain where the term swirling originally comes from with regards to the mixing of white and chocolate ice cream made in an ice cream machine. I was recently traveling around with an Eastern European cousin, and he was behaving more like a woman than a man. In fact, he was raised by his mother and his father was too busy and didn't actually spend too much time with him while he was growing up. I never really thought of the idea that males would start thinking like females if that's all they've actually known their entire lives. If that's true, then male children raised by single mothers have more highly developed gray matter regions in their heads than the white matter that is traditionally developed with regards to male rational thinking power and prowess. Could it be possible that single mothers, because they have to have more financial responsibility, are using more of the white matter in their brains, and their sons are using more of the gray matter, so in essence women are being socialized to use the traditional masculine ways of thinking, and boys or men are being socialized to use the more feminine parts? I believe this is where feminists get this idea that the only differences between men and women are social and not necessarily biological. It's as if men are being forced and encouraged to use their smaller and less developed feminine parts of the mind, while women are being encouraged to use their smaller, masculine parts. But ironically, women still seek out the men that use white matter more than he actually uses his gray matter, and the male still seeks out the woman that uses her gray matter more than her white. Biology attracts us to a certain type of woman, yet society tells us that we should be attracted to the strong and independent type. Could this actually be a way that the state as well as corporations try and control us by getting more men to think like women and getting more women to think like men? Could this all be some sort of social engineering on a massive scale to handicap male masculinity while at the same time handicapping femininity? That cousin I mentioned earlier was a guy obsessed with selfies as well as his Facebook image. Never in my entire life have I actually seen such narcissism from a male, but it makes sense because the very few friends I've actually had that came from single mother households also tended to take a lot more selfies in general. I went through their Facebook pages and saw this trend. Perhaps that's another scientific study that needs to be done. So again, if it's true that young black males are becoming more narcissistic because of the way that their single mothers are raising them, then it would actually make sense that black women would now start becoming more attracted to white males. Maybe some of them are actually skipping black men altogether and going straight for the white guys. The effeminate black men raised by single mothers are taught and trained by their mothers that if they behave nicely and politely, that they'll get female validation and approval from their mothers, as well as women in general. So it only makes sense for them once they start their lives to be as nice and polite as possible to black women to get approval from them. But it doesn't work that way because most black women actually want a man that's not polite and groveling at her feet. She wants a leader and not a man that can barely lead her to the Mangina of the Year awards. I'm sure that makes Raging Golden Eagle happy, but it certainly won't make her happy. It seems that boys raised in single-mother households without father figures have been mentally neutered and haven't fully developed their white matter, i.e. their ability to reason as well as to be rational. Mr. Anonymous, I also like your idea that white women will start to see what black women are up to and that there'll be some sort of a backlash, but I'm not sure about this. Women are generally uncomfortable and they often follow the fads. White women see mixed-race couples on television and they think that's perfectly acceptable. The way I see it, white women will probably try and outcompete one another for the few remaining alpha males, the white guys out there, rather than attack black women for being too nice and taking away white men from them. I don't think that white females will respond the same way that black women do when white females come and take away their prize males. I also want to talk about that black woman I talked about in my previous video. I was completely shocked when she actually helped me haul my camera and lighting equipment at my photo shoot, and I was shocked at how polite and nice she was. Maybe I should coin the term Stepford sister to describe her because she seemed more like a robot than a real woman. I can count the number of times that women have helped me in my life besides my mother on only one hand, and of those 5 times women have helped me, 3 of those times were her. Mr. Anonymous, black women certainly observe how white women treat white men, and then certainly know how to treat us better so they can become our status objects. But the issue is more complicated than white males accepting black females on a few dates. Black women also have to fit in with the white man's family. My mother went nuts when I was dating a Jamaican girl. I also have an Indian friend and my mother didn't like her either, and she told me not to think about it with regards to dating her. The racism comes from older generations, and ironically my mother is full of it. And ironically she's also less assimilated into Canadian society than my Indian friend. So the racism is purely based on skin color and not necessarily the character of the person. But this idea of socializing males to be more like females is basically like trying to program an Apple computer to run Windows instead of Apple OS. And MGTOW is like Linux software running on a PC. It's open source and both Microsoft and Apple don't like it because much like MGTOW and women, they can't actually get a cut from us using this type of software on our wetware. I also think there's a melting pot of culture as well as black and white music swirling together, and this also makes it more socially acceptable for mixing and races in our society. This past Easter I was taking some pictures in an all-black gospel church filled with mostly Jamaicans, and they actually have strong matriarchs holding together their families, and you won't see a single white person there except myself. But they welcomed me in and they were very friendly, especially the younger ones. I don't care who I work for and money is money, and doing something different like that shows me that people are pretty much the same, and swirling is only something that happens in modern wealthy societies, and not those that are poorer and less prosperous. I want to end today's video by saying that one of my older videos I did about Nikola Tesla, he said that women are starting to act and think more like men, and he didn't like it because they weren't the types of women that he got used to and idealized when he was growing up. He wasn't attracted to women using more masculine ways of thinking. He was attracted to feminine women, not only on the outside but on the inside as well. And I'm sure that he also understood that he could transmute his sexual energy into world-changing inventions instead of giving it to women to waste on consumer goods. I'm also putting a link to that video in the description below in case anyone wants to check it out. I'll also make the assumption that the most pleasant women to be around are the ones that are feminine, and I'm presuming develop their gray matter more than their white matter. Anyways, thanks again Mr. Anonymous for your donation. And as for everyone else out there, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the effeminate manginas away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.